about to get started. And I just need to make sure, because I feel like I'm ready for a tech fail in just a second. Nope, here we go. Let's start the show. All right, you guys. It is episode 47, and I'm just gonna say right now that we might have some interruptions happening on both of our ends today, just because we all know that we are dealing with this crazy coronavirus stuff, and most of us are at home. So, usually, when I do these shows, my kids aren't running around trying to have lunch. My husband's not on a call and sharing the um, internet bandwidth with me, and it's kind of crazy. But today we're going to have an awesome conversation, and I feel like this is almost perfect considering the times. And we're going to talk about just families and parenting and all this crazy stuff. And I just wanted to introduce my awesome co-host for episode 47, Erin Lonergan. Erin, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Erin and I go way back. We'll talk about that. But our theme before we get started and whatnot, just so you know what we're going to be discussing once we get through all the fun intro stuff, is success in parenting. Okay, so both of us have kids, we've been married, we work, all of these things, and so we're going to talk about how parents juggle it all. And Erin, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself while I clean up my screen of craziness right now, so that we can chit chat. But yeah, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
My name's Erin. I currently live in Skokie, so not far. And my husband and I, we have a business together at the moment. It's called 12 Tone Music School. It's in Glenview, downtown Glenview, right by the Heinens and Jimmy John's and all that. So, I mean, we're currently kind of dealing with coronavirus. We're doing online lessons, but obviously the actual physical space is closed. So just trying to kind of do what we can to make the online lessons as good as possible. We give lessons with piano, drums, guitar, bass guitar, vocal lessons, some ukulele, electric guitar mostly, those kind of rock band type instruments. And we've been doing that about a year. So before that, I worked, probably maybe 12 years at Northwestern. Ever since I graduated college and I moved here, I worked at Northwestern. Ended up with doing grant management mostly at the end there. So we have 2 kids. We have a son who's 8 and a daughter who's just turned 6. And I guess that's pretty much it right now.
Yeah,
Trying to homeschool and all that. So
I know, right? So yeah, so Northwestern is our tie. I mean, when did you stop working there? Because I left in 2015, and
I left full-time work in 2015, and then I did some like temporary work for a little bit, I think in 2017, 18.
yeah, yeah.
But
And then how
yeah,
you were
it's been a
working?
couple years.
Were you working there longer than I was? I started in 2007.
I started in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a biology major, so I was in the lab for a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, like research technician stuff for a while until I moved out of that into research administration downtown. So.
Yes. And so we were working in the engineering school together, which is my alma mater and my home. I feel like
Right. Yeah, that's right.
so bleeding purple, which I feel like, I don't know if you
Oh,
could see, but like
you're a
I've got
cheerleader, right?
I've got so much purple in my hair now. I don't know if you can see it. Like I got highlights in there. And if I change the color of my light, can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. But I don't know. Hold on.
I have an Illinois shirt on right now. So.
Yay. Yeah, so this is one of those days. Ooh, I don't like that light. Okay. This is one of those days where I feel like since coronavirus started, I like have not worn makeup. I just put on like a little bit of eyeliner because I was like, I want to be able to look at this video.
I don't have any. I don't want to touch my
I know. So it's just one of those things where it's like I'm due for a shower today. I try to shower like 3 times a week, and I mostly wear the same clothes. So I'm like wearing the same bottoms that I was wearing yesterday when it was so nice outside, and
Yeah, it's
it's
so nice.
crazy.
It's pretty nice now. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's hard to want to be uncomfortable when you're home all day in
yeah.
uncomfortable clothes. So,
But meanwhile, I've been having like clothes. I've been doing like online shopping and having stuff shipped to my house, and I like got all these like cute shoes that I can't wear until we get out of here. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna just package these things, and then just when we actually can step out and be in public, I'm going to be unrecognizable because I've been, just not doing my hair and not having makeup. I feel like my hair is like all ratty, like it's gross. But
yeah.
it's authentic and it's real, and I just love seeing like all of the celebrities who are like at home and they're in their t-shirts, and it's so cool to just see everyone just chilling out and doing their
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
We're lucky to be home, so
Yeah, totally.
lucky.
So one of the questions that I ask all of my co-hosts is something that you geek out on, and it can't be something that is work related because usually most of the people I talk to enjoy the work that they do. So what would you say is something you geek
I lately, because it's, being home and kind of having this stressful thing out there. I've been watching that show. Gosh, I've seen this movie a million times. That like PS to All the Boys I Loved You movie
Oh,
sequel. I've probably seen both of those like 8 times. And then
that's great.
and then that movie after, like anything like high school or college, like cheesy love movies.
I love it.
And I like the soundtrack. So usually the music is pretty good. But I don't know. I'm almost 40, but I'm like watching these movies. Like, I don't know, like trying to think back to like simpler times maybe. But
Could you imagine being a teenager in this time? Like, I
um,
feel like I had somebody like you're just like you want, your hormones are raging and you just want to go hang out with your friends and you don't want to be with your parents and then you're stuck at home. Like,
I don't know. My parents were my dad was a doctor, my mom was a nurse. So I think my life would have been really different if they would have been going to work every day. I think
yeah,
about those families and the kids, and I would have been like kind of stressed out, I think. So
yeah, for
they're
sure.
both retired now. But yeah, it would have been very, very different. Now it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's been okay, but it's just, yeah, trying to have some kind of routine, which we're still struggling with right now.
Yeah, yeah, which we're definitely going to talk about a little bit. And then, I think one of the other things because we're both, in this like switching over into the 40s like phase, like if it was, if this was happening when we were, students or if we were kids, like it would have been a totally different time. Like you would have no connection with anyone. And I feel like I'm super grateful now for technology
Yeah.
because we can have conversations like this and we're playing like doing family game nights and different things like that. I just hosted a virtual talent show slash thing, which I hope you'll
Yeah.
perform at my next one.
Yeah, I have a lot of work to do. But
Yeah.
yeah, like
No, I'm so excited. It'll be like my birthday present. So I'm super excited about that. But it's finding different ways to connect despite.
yeah, I typically don't FaceTime my mom. I call her a lot. We talk a lot, but like now we've been FaceTiming a lot, which is
Yeah.
something we typically don't do.
Yeah.
Because we're always like looking at our necks, and I don't know, we're always what's going on. Uh,
Yeah, my mom will always like yeah, I'm like I need a piece of paper to like demonstrate like what you see on the screen is like
she's like behind,
what
like
are you doing
so
today?
down.
Like you just see this on the screen. And I was like, Mom, I can't see your face. Like what? Like is it this close to your eyes that I can't see you? But yeah, I've been FaceTiming. My parents were actually on a cruise from end of January till like March,
Oh my
I think March
gosh.
11th.
Oh my
They had
god.
no problem getting in the country. They had no issues on their boat. Like it was a
Oh,
princess cruise too, so like everyone was like kind of high alert.
oh,
And we haven't been able to like hug them or anything since we came back because they were actually going to go to the Philippines the following week, like March 17th, and that was like when everything started like falling apart here in Illinois. And
yeah.
that was the first week that stuff was shut down. And my mom's like, "We're gonna go. If they're not going to cancel our flight and give us our money back, then we're not going to lose our money." And I was like, "They're going to let you they have to, because that was the night that
Oh, that's
President Trump was
dangerous.
announcing like no travel to Europe or whatever.
Right,
And they're
right.
like, we're gonna go to the Philippines, and I was like, if you go, you're gone for like a month and a half, and if you can't make it back, like we can't do anything about it.
Right. We can't help.
And so they were able to cancel their trip, and thank God that they did, because I think that following week they shut down the Philippines, where like you couldn't leave Manila. So even if they flew there, they wouldn't have been able to get to our house that is like 4 hours away. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Oh,
so we get to just like FaceTime at night, and we're
yeah.
hopefully going to try to do some sort of like virtual Easter lunch or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Get
That's
together. It's just crazy.
time is, I don't really know. I know Easter's coming up, but I'm like, I forgot because it's like, what day is it?
I know, and it's just like, ugh, I
Really right now. Yeah, yeah.
just can't even imagine. So,
Yeah.
coronavirus might cover this whole, be scattered in through this entire conversation, but I feel like, it's the thing that we're all talking about, but we're going to talk about the positive things, or just how to navigate through it while we're talking. Okay, so the next thing that I do with everyone is that I have this subset of cards for this game called Vulnerability is Sexy. We don't play the game, but we use the questions. And so there's
Okay.
three different categories. One of them is Break the Ice, which is like a blue card, and it's a general like you know provoking question, not that bad. There's a
Okay.
second category. There's a little bit deeper questions called Get Vulnerable, and then there's a third category called Laugh a Little, if you're looking for something fun to answer. So what category would you like?
Laugh a little.
Let's do it. And some of these are action cards, so if it is, then I'll pull another one.
Really? Okay.
Okay, no, this is good. All right, so let me just let it. Okay, here. If you could be anything other than human, real, mythical, or theoretical, what would you be? Hmm. So we'll
So
both answer this if we can think about. Um, if you think you know.
I don't know. Maybe like a what is that called? Shoot.
Hmm.
Oh, like a Harry Potter person. I don't know, like a wizard.
A wizard? Why would you be a wizard?
Harry Potter.
Oh, you would be Harry Potter.
Not human, right? He's not considered human.
He's a wizard.
A
Yeah.
wizard.
Real, mythical, or theoretical. It could be anything.
I could cure things. I don't know. I could just
Yeah.
like end this.
I don't even know like what when I
I
think about like
could
what I
go.
would say, like the something that stuck in my mind, and this is, I feel like to have a real answer, like I'd have to really think about it, and like, oh, this would be really, really cool. But like the first thing that came into my mind, and this is probably not
Or a bird. Yeah.
like, what if I was like cotton candy? Because it's like you're big and you take up a lot of space, but then you can like just add a little water, and then like you can just be compact, and you're just sugar and you're very sweet. That was what came up in my mind. I don't know. I'd have to think about that and be like, yeah,
I
I wouldn't want to be cotton candy, but that was the first thing that came in my head.
just want to like, ride the broom and like
Yeah.
that cool stuff. And then obviously the magic. I mean, that would be so useful right now.
What
Um,
would be your
invisible,
go-to spell?
my go-to spell. Oh God. Right now, I'm just thinking of like Mary Poppins type of thing. Like, boom, everything's clean.
Or that, yeah, no, that would be perfect for all parents, or just like boom,
Yeah,
coronavirus gone, or
if I could do that, of course. But yeah, like,
coronavirus exodogamus or something like
yeah,
that.
check it off the box. It's over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heal. Yeah, just healing, massive bodily healing to sick people, of course. But if I can't do anything that impressive, it would definitely be just clean everything.
Clean everything. I was on this one thread that was like all moms, and they were like, "What is the, which like it was just trying to like put yourself in a category. Like if you could have like one thing, what would it be?" And it would just be like, I could, magically clean my house, or like my kids wouldn't complain, or like something like that. There was just like all these options, and everyone was like, I'd have to, I'd have like all of my chores handled, and I
Yeah.
think
Or just
that's
like dinner. I think maybe dinner. I
yeah.
like to clean more than I like to cook. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah. I don't like either.
I don't like either.
But it's
Really,
like you have to pick.
I'm not good at cooking. I don't know if I'm good at cleaning, but it's easier to do than
You're
cooking's
like clean
hard.
enough,
Cooking's
which is
hard.
the philosophy that we have in our house. I have my kids like vacuuming twice a week. So I'll have one of them do it
Yeah.
one day and then one of them so that we get it covered.
Oh yeah. My son has asthma, so I vacuum now that we're home all the time, like every day because he has
Oh man.
asthma and I just need to make sure nothing happens with him.
Yeah. Ugh,
Yeah,
so
it's a lot
much
of
weird.
vacuuming. I know. I know.
All right, so the next thing that we want to share, and obviously needed now more than ever, is a positive news story to just keep the positive vibes streaming through the interwebs in the only way that we can connect with each other. This is just such a like great highlight of every show, just because it focuses on the positive, and not to say that it is a cheerful conversation generally, and there's never
Mhm.
been any fights or negativity or whatnot, but sometimes negativity has to play a part in that, but looking for the positive. So, do you want me to go first or you want to go
Sure,
first?
you can go first.
Okay. So, I think on for just to have something that was like relevant to parents, I found a story that was like really, really sweet. I think it's from about a week and a half ago or a week ago. We all know, for those of you who are parents that are watching this, that e-learning is a thing that we're all doing now, and having to adapt to that has been, not only for, I think probably hardest for people who have, two parents that work full-time jobs
Mhm.
and don't have the flexibility. I think entrepreneurship has a little bit more flexibility, but not necessarily all the flexibility, especially when, it is a bigger business that, tons of people are depending on. But I found this article, and I think it was somebody in South Dakota. It was a student was having trouble understanding a certain lesson and had emailed the teacher, but like she was still confused. And so the teacher actually lived across the street. And so he went on their front porch and brought a whiteboard
Oh,
and
yeah.
started like through the door, like teaching the lesson, like, here's how you do it. And I just thought that that was super sweet.
Yeah,
And it made me really wish that
that
we
is.
had teachers living across the street from us.
No,
Because,
teachers, yeah, they're amazing.
yeah,
We knew that before, but now we really know that trying to teach anything to our children is very challenging.
it's definitely challenging. And,
Yeah,
I loved being a teacher, but it's exhausting. It definitely is
yeah,
really hard. And I feel like I would have really enjoyed doing some kind of like e-learning something, just because it's like it's a little bit more flexible than like having to be at school. And
yeah,
a lot of the reasons why I didn't love being a teacher was just because I need flexibility. And I think I got dinged in I think it was my first year teaching. They were like, you had to like clock in and clock out,
yeah.
but there were times where like you had to be there at like 7:35 and I would clock in at like 7:36 like multiple times, and they like would write me up for it, and I was like,
Having
this is probably not ideal. And
it.
the second school that I didn't do that. They just didn't care. And I mean, the whole thing that was so hard about that first school is that they gave me my first two periods of the day off, so it's kind of like I just need to show up and then I can plan everything in the morning. But like, I had to follow certain rules, and I'm not the biggest rule follower.
Yeah, I was gonna be a teacher. I went to DePaul for my master's. Sorry, it's kind of loud over there. I was going to be a high school biology teacher, but after I did a lot of student or observation hours and I was about to start student teaching, I was like,
Whatever.
I have no control. I'm pretty introverted. I have no control over this classroom. Like I did a few lessons
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is never going to happen. That's why I moved to Chicago, was to go to DePaul. And then I'm like, I can't. I looked like I was 17 anyways,
Yeah.
but I was like teaching biology to high school kids and it was ridiculous. It was so ridiculous that I never finished it, which I don't know, maybe I should have, but
Eh.
it was like I don't have that personality. I like no one listens to me. I'm like, do this, please, so it's just terrible. And I am kind of introverted, so it's exhausting in so many ways to have to
Yeah.
like be on like that.
Yeah.
My
That's definitely something.
husband's different. He likes doing that stuff, but I'm just like I need to be alone now for a couple days after this.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
teachers are
So,
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's all of our intro stuff. But oh, you have to do
Oh,
your story as well.
it's just a local thing. There's a restaurant in Morton Grove, kind of next to Skokie. It's called, gosh, I'm blanking now. Why am I blanking on? Savory Crust. And they do gourmet empanadas, and they're
Okay.
delicious. They have such good food. And it's just them, and like a bunch of restaurants around here are just feeding our hospital workers, and our community members are buying these meal kits, and the restaurants are making all this food and delivering it. And I think it's just so great that all these people that are like, I can't even imagine working in a hospital right now, and the stress with that, and the exhaustion, and the worry, and they're at least getting food. And we have these restaurants, and our people that live here are feeding the workers, which is, I think, is so important to keep their energy up and to just make their lives in some way easier, in some like little way a little bit easier. So
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and I feel like the restaurant industry is taking such a big hit with all of this. So,
yeah,
it's kind of nice to, I mean, and I've never been a big cook, so I was eating out like every other day normally in normal life, but
yeah,
um I think Tim was sharing with me like a slide deck that he got from one of the credit card companies showing like the the change year over year in terms of like what people were spending at the grocery store versus dining out.
yeah, yeah,
Like, you know, groceries was like that, and like the restaurant industry was like this. It was like it's super decline, and they totally switched places because you can't eat out. But we go and just drive and pick up food.
yeah.
Um,
We do here and
every
there.
night that we can.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's good that, I mean, they're really working hard, and I know they need to, but they're working around the clock to make these meals that are, a lot of them going to healthcare workers. So I think that's
Yeah, to just
all
be.
the people that are provide helping pay for them as well.
Yeah, it's
Really
it's
cool.
insane. But thank you to all of those people who are being forced as part of their job to take care of us, and like all the police and
Yeah,
healthcare and all of those amazing things. Um,
yeah,
and meanwhile we're like, we just want to get out of the house. So, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I would like to hope, and I've heard that like, and I'm not sure because I know that yesterday in Chicago it was really really nice, and for people
mhm,
um who don't have the like a nice backyard or patio to sit in, like it
yeah,
kind of
that's
makes you
gotta be
want to like just go out and about. And I hope people stayed home because I know that there's a lot of different perspectives about this, but I'm just kind of like, come on, just stay home so that we can get out of this faster, because I feel like the longer that we disregard, the longer we're going to be in here. And I feel like we're going to be
mhm,
in this till at least June,
yeah,
if I had to predict right now. I mean, when you think about the Olympics like being
yeah,
postponed a year, I mean, it's like it's probably still going to be an issue in July.
yeah.
um,
I think so. So
it's
yeah, just stay home, do what you can. Yeah, if you don't have a yard, I don't, I feel really, that's challenging. That's really
Yeah.
challenging. So, we do have a backyard right now, which is nice. But I don't know. I guess, if I think people are getting masks. I know a friend who's making them for people. So I guess you could probably go on Etsy, or just try and figure out someone who's making them, or if you can make them yourselves if you do want to go out for a walk or something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah, so much going on.
yeah.
All right, how about we shift the conversation? I'm sure the coronavirus will show up in and out of our conversation, just because we almost have to talk about like what it was like in the normal day to day, and um what it's like now. Because I
Yeah.
mean, we're gonna when this is all over, things are gonna be different, even just a little bit. Yes, we'll all be excited to go back out, but I think there's gonna be a lot of like germophobia happening, and
Yeah,
all that stuff.
agoraphobia too. Some people, you never know, are going to be scared to leave their house, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be.
So let's talk about kids for a second. So you have an 8-year old and a 6-year old. I have an 8-year old and a 10-year old. And let's start by talking a little bit about, and obviously, both of us don't necessarily know what it's like to be a parent of a teenager, so this might be
Right.
geared this conversation might be geared towards people that are more in the infancy to 10 years old phase. But just tell me about like your parenting journey, and I'll share a little bit about mine after you.
Well, we had John pretty quickly after we got married, so that was just kind of a surprise. My mom had some fertility issues, so I just didn't think that would happen like it did.
Yeah.
I just assumed it would take like 5 years, and I was lucky it didn't. But so that was kind of surprising. We were pretty broke still. John had just started his business, another business, so it was challenging. It was really hard, we just paying for daycare and all that kind of stuff. But luckily, kind of made our way through. We lived in Evanston, now we live in Skokie, so we have a home here, which is nice. But our first has been more challenging than our second. So I don't know if that's better. Like we kind of had the harder one first. So when the second came, she seemed like a breeze.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I would still say he's, he likes to push our buttons, and he's very, very independent and he knows everything. And even though he's only 8, he feels like a teenager at times.
yeah.
I must say.
I
Um,
feel like they grow up in the like growing up in the technology age, like they're just gonna bypass us. Like I've thought that I was
yeah,
pretty like tech savvy, but I feel like I'm starting to lose it. Like I was watching my younger one, he's taking this like Scratch course, which is like a
yeah,
coding
yeah.
thing, and it's super cool, but like I did coding in college and I enjoyed it, but I would rather not do it now. Like I'll pull it out when I need to, but like to just see like at the age of 8 you're putting this thing together. He basically took the stick figure that was like doing the I don't know what's this dance.
Oh, the disco dance, I guess.
Yeah, or whatever that is. Like, I don't know why I'm blanking on it right now, but I
I,
was like, and then
so,
the background was changing every couple seconds, and I was like, that's amazing. Like, and then my older one, I guess, because today for their e-learning, they had to choose these activities, and so one of them was like doing I think it was a different kind of coding, but it was like I don't, it wasn't Minecraft, but it was something, but he basically put it to music, and it was this like dog that was dancing and doing different moves for like a certain amount of 8 counts, and I was like, that's insane.
yeah, that's impressive. Dang.
So I just love that that's happening at
Yeah.
such a young age now, and I feel like they will probably, especially with everything that's going on right now, they'll be a lot more independent and be able to do things virtually
Oh,
than
for sure.
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on it because I see how addictive the technology is. At least for our
Yeah.
son, he really gets addicted to it. So sometimes we kind of just pull it all away, and I don't really know. I haven't found the right mix yet, to be honest.
Do
Like,
you okay, so this happens to my kids, so this will be really interesting. So during spring break, they didn't really have anything to do, so they spent a lot of time on technology, which
yeah,
I still gave them. Like they had to do a worksheet, they had to practice their instruments, they had to do they're taking taekwondo, so they had to do that. Like they had to, a set number of things, but if they got done with all of that stuff, then they could play. And that
yeah,
was basically like, okay, now I have the freedom to do whatever it is that I need to do.
right.
And but when it got to be too much, like because like the whole addiction factor, it was like, okay, time to go to bed, but they had been on like electronics for hours at this point, who knows how long, I don't even know if I want to say. But and then it's late and they're like, I just want to finish watching this video, like screaming at me, and I was like, holy cow, like they are like
I don't
glued
know.
into it. Do you deal with that at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's when we end up being like no more screens at all, which that's probably not realistic
Yeah. But it's like you
right
almost have to,
now.
just like an addiction, like you have to take it away and then you like see
Yeah.
them come back to their
Slowly
self.
introduce it. And then you get to then it gets bad again. I don't know. It's like a cycle.
It's totally
So
a cycle.
but I also know, like, with technology and smartphones and stuff, I feel like my concentration has changed.
Oh,
My
for sure.
ability to focus. So I worry about that a little bit. Like, I don't know. I think when I was a kid, I had a computer, but I didn't really do much with it. I would like we got a printer, so I would like print things. You had to rip those sides off that printer paper.
Oh, yeah.
I would like print pictures that would take like 45 minutes, you know, to like, and everything took so much longer, everything. So
Yeah.
it's like that would be an hour of my time printing that one picture.
Then
So
you're like,
it's
what do
like
I do?
everything, the days, I guess, passed quicker because I don't know, downloading, trying to find some songs on the radio to listen to. That was like another hour, you know, like to record. So all these things that
Yeah.
we did took so much longer.
Yeah.
So whereas
Yeah. And
now, like they can just download a song in a minute, and not even a minute, in a second, and do whatever. Everything's so fast, so it leaves more time open. I don't know.
Yeah.
'Cause I just felt like I was always busy doing something, but I didn't do any electronics.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had a Walkman, and I don't know.
Yeah, all
Um,
that stuff. I used to do books on tape and stuff like that, which I guess you could still do. And my kids are good readers, so I'm grateful for that. But it is definitely interesting the dynamic of like what it was like growing up and then seeing what they're up to. And I'm like, did you know that I was 20 years old when I got my first cell phone on my own? That
yeah.
wasn't like a number that I shared with my mom and dad. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you
I
know,
was just thinking the other night about even being in college, you know, like people would call for your roommate or whatever. You'd have to like leave these messages, or sometimes you'd forget and they'd be like, how come you didn't tell me Joe called or who, you know, like, well, I forgot. I don't know. Like you had to rely on other people to
yeah,
like
it's
get your messages
interesting.
and stuff like that.
It's so
So,
crazy.
but yeah, I
Um,
don't know. I'm changing it every day. Like
yeah.
before it was like, okay, like you said, you have to do all these activities, and at 4 o'clock you guys can do some screen. Just having them be like they know if it's not 4 o'clock they can't do any screen.
Yeah.
But then like our schedule got off, and then it was 4 and they hadn't done anything that they were supposed to, and but then they're like, it's 4 o'clock, you said. And so then it's like, well,
Yeah.
not today, because it's just
Yeah.
this constant thing that is like,
Yeah. And I think we should probably talk about that. I mean, I think, so how was, and then you said that your daughter was a little bit easier to handle in terms
ah,
of
she's just more I mean, everyone's different, and some people are, I wouldn't say more imaginative, but they can access it easier. So
Mhm.
she is, it's easier for her to like play and make pretend and like play with her stuffed animals and like have these little worlds in her on her own.
Yeah.
Whereas with our older son, he even as a baby had a hard time with it. Like I felt like I had to like I was constantly entertaining him, even as a baby,
Hmm.
constantly bouncing him. I was constantly like making faces and singing to him, or else he would cry. Like he always, personality, always needed someone to entertain him, to feel comfortable. Or I don't really know, but
So something about like the soothing and
it's harder for him. So it's great that he has a sister that he does, because she kind of helps him when they do play together.
yeah.
Um, she
And
really
then once
helps
he
him
starts
like.
to lose steam, then it's like, okay, now I need to step in.
Yeah, he needs a little help to enter like an imaginatory world, and he has it. It's just for some reason harder for him to access it.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what causes that, or what that is. It's so natural for her
Yeah.
that when they play together, they can like do things that he would never do on his own, never.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. Like now that we have the both of them, I think if we didn't, I think we would have a lot more challenges, because he would always probably be like, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored.
Did you have siblings?
I have one brother, an older brother.
Yeah.
So um,
And how many years apart are you guys?
just 2.5, kind of the same as my kids. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
played together a lot, and um, yeah, I mean, we just like our kids play together pretty well, just like, most siblings, and then they get sick of each other, but they do play together. We're lucky that they do play together pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. I have my brother and I have a younger brother. He's 5 years younger than me, and I think my two kids are 2 years apart, and they get along really, really well most of the time.
Yeah.
They do most of the, typical boy fighting type of things where they're, you know, getting physical with each other and stuff like that, but not most of the time. It's a lot more like shouting matches. But Yeah, I don't feel like my brother and I, we get along really well now, but I think when we were younger, I think I had too much time between,
Yeah.
being alone that I was like, why are you here?
Right.
But I didn't even realize it until my mom told me that I was not really happy that I had a sibling, which I've blocked that memory out. Maybe it was just trauma, but it's
Because when
great.
you're like, John was 2.5 when Maria was born, and he doesn't remember any of the time he's too little
Hmm.
to have lived without her.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any memories of being just the three of us. So,
But we have memories of that, probably those first couple years, right? So if you had to, so now that you've been a parent for what, like eight, we'll count like an extra year for just pregnancy because I feel like that counts. What would you say so far to date has been the most challenging, and which has been, so like in terms of like the age range, and which has been like the sweet spot? Would, if you like could go back to that time, you would like
um,
pause there.
I think I don't know. I think 4 and 5 were actually kind of hard for me. Ages 4 and 5. Maybe more 4 because I felt like for a long, long time I just wanted to like take a shower and
And you
not
couldn't?
be worried. I just wanted to take a shower. Now I feel like I can, like they can, and I know they're not going to really hurt themselves, but I feel like my son, he was jumping off couches. Like he was really, really, he's a lot of energy. And
Yeah.
so, and she having a girl, like maybe girls are calmer. I don't think so actually, but
Mhm.
having him, she kind of followed him sometimes. So she would jump off of stuff that maybe she wouldn't have done before. I have no idea
Mhm.
because I never had her without him. But so she would do crazy stuff because he was doing it. So I just felt like I just want to take a shower. I just want to go take a shower. And it seemed like it took like 7 years with the two kids, like until he was 7 and she was 5. Like I just
So
that's
like a year ago.
I just yeah, I just that was like just one basic thing I wanted to do so badly was just take a shower and not be scared someone was gonna like kill themselves.
Oh my gosh.
And then and the sleeping part too, it took a long time for John to he still has a hard time sleeping. He's just not a sleeper.
Yeah.
And so until he was 5, man, it took 2 hours to get him to bed every single night. Every night. I would like come home from work and be like, cook food, play with him. And then I knew I had 2 more hours of just constantly trying to get him to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And he started all over again. So
Yeah.
now, now he can read and he still goes to bed too late, I would say, because his brain doesn't shut off, but he can at least read and do
what's his bedtime?
we like to have it around 8:30 or 9, but right now it's later because we're all messed up with our schedule.
Yeah. We had a 9:30 bedtime because my kids are very energetic as well,
Yeah.
and they would just wake up, but we would basically they'd be asleep from ideally 9:30 to like 7.
But yeah.
How many hours is that? 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's like 9.5 hours, which has been good. And I've struggled getting my kids to bed too because yeah. So there's a lot of melatonin usage in this house.
Yeah.
It's definitely harder. Like it's more of the bedtime is like, well, we stop at like 10, and then sometimes they're still like reading or whatever. Like I think my oldest, it was like 11 o'clock, and I was like, you have to stop reading, like you have to go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like,
don't know how they don't fall asleep reading. I always do. Like whenever I read, I love to read, but it always makes me fall asleep. I don't.
yeah, it's definitely like the best cure for,
I know. Not for them. It's like gives them more energy somehow. Like I
yeah.
don't know. I
um
never had a lot. I was always like kind of a tired kid. Tired.
oh my
So
gosh.
I don't know. They didn't. Marie's more tired than John, but John, he's just like I think he's like one of those people that could just sleep 5 hours a night, and
And
his
be okay.
grandfather is like that, and some people just are. They just don't need a lot of sleep, even though it's healthy to sleep. But I don't know, their bodies are just different. He just wakes up.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna be
can
one
do
of
10
those
hours
night
a
owls.
night. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so ages like 4 or 5, I would say that for me the hardest was, and having kids 2 years apart. I think for both of them individually, it was just hard. I mean, I think for me it was hard between when my oldest was 2 and when he was 5. So around the same time. It's just because I think 3 was definitely, they talk about terrible twos, but I feel like it's like terrible threes
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Um,
I
I
agree.
think that that was a big struggle.
And you have like a 1 year old that's like going everywhere, like walking
Yeah, like the
everywhere.
crawling, and it was like nightmare. But I would say that like life now is probably, and I know that you're still 2 years to feel this, but like this is the sweet spot I feel. Because there's that point where they still love you, and they're not afraid to like give you kisses and hugs, and they're still affectionate, and they haven't gotten into like the teenage part. So I'm like,
Right.
I feel like right now is part of where I'm like, you know what? I want to take it easy in my business because I know that, this is the sweet spot right now, and I want
Yeah,
to spend as
enjoy
much
it.
time with them. But yeah, there were times where it was just like I just want to shoot myself. And I know that's, I think too, some of the hardest phases too was, I think, and this is when I was working at Northwestern, when after, having the first kid and then trying to go back to work, that was really, really hard. Because I was such a workaholic and I wanted to go back to work so fast. So I actually went back to work after 6 weeks. But
Yeah,
then instead of taking like 12 weeks off and just then like showing up to work, I was like, I would just want to have an extended like ease back in. So I would do like half days and basically like spread out my personal time
right.
in order to
I
get.
was like, I will go back the very last second. I had no desire to go back to work. I
I
was,
think you were pregnant when I was leaving McCormick to go to
yeah,
Kellogg, right?
y-
I remember
yeah, I think so. I
you're
mean,
just like, I don't need
I had
half
an
food.
emergency. I had like a really emergency C-section situation, so I was like pretty sick. Um,
Yeah,
I was pretty sick for the first 6 weeks after he was born. Like I could still barely like get out of bed. It was really bad.
yeah,
Um, so I really didn't want to go back. I was still very tired, and if my husband would have had health insurance, which he didn't at the time, I probably wouldn't have. But I
yeah,
had to. I had no choice. So it was stressful, and I was like,
yeah,
"Can't you have a job with health insurance?" Because that was me. I was the health insurance lady for a long time.
yeah.
So that kind of was annoying. But
There's a lot of logistics, and I
oh yeah,
feel like if you're a parent and you're watching this, you're probably like, yes, yes, I totally deal with all of these things. One of the things that I wanted to ask and maybe discuss is that, on the theme of like, yeah, there's a lot of trial and error that goes into trying to figure out how to parent, and like, no, there's no right way. But what do you feel that you've done in your parenting years so far that has been really successful? Because I think we acknowledge that we're juggling a lot of things. We have to think about careers, we have to think about just, educating our kids, we have to think about our own sanity, we have to make sure that we're having fun. There's just so many things that we have to think about. We
yeah,
need to, make sure that we're putting healthy food and, doing, making sure that they're getting, activity that is, there's just so much that we have to think about. So like, what's a tactic that you've kind of employed in your family that has, or deployed, I don't know what the right word is, but that has really, really worked?
um, right now, I guess I would say since we're all kind of together all the time, I mean, it's a little more unusual, but there's a lot more feelings, big feelings, I guess you would call them, because we're together a lot and trying to navigate it. So, what I have learned, especially with both of my kids, I would say, is, and this goes for me too. I guess I've learned it from myself. When they get really upset, like my initial reaction is to comfort them, go to them, like ask them questions. But I think it's a personality thing. But for both of my kids, I honestly just have to leave them alone.
Hmm.
I have to leave them alone for like 10 minutes to calm themselves down, because when I wasn't, we were just getting in more and more fights. Like that. And I think it depends on the person though. Some people, if you left them alone, would feel worse, like they want you to be there. And I am there like soon, but like both of my kids need this like 10-minute cooling off point, or else I feel like the fight doesn't end. So then they do that, and then I like, after they've had a few minutes, to go in there, ask them if they're okay, and just basically talk about what happened. Um, comfort them, hug them, whatever it is. But I've learned recently that I just have to let it settle for a minute, for them specifically. And
Yes.
I'm the same. Like if I'm upset, if someone keeps asking me, I'm still going to keep being upset and maybe say something I shouldn't. I do need to be left alone. So that's me. And I figured that out. And so I'm like, I'm going to just try this with them, because the more I'm interacting with them when they're mad, is just never ending.
Yeah.
Um, but everyone's different. So that may not work for everybody,
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
might.
And I mean, I think that this is I think all parents have different strategies on how they do things. I think when my kids get upset, there's I employ the whole, is it employ or deploy? I don't know. There's some other word, but one of the things that I do is, um, if they're fighting with each other, especially,
Yeah.
I'll be like, what is all this about? Like, all right, if you guys aren't gonna are not gonna be nice to each other, if you're gonna fight, I start like, bringing humor into it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, if you guys you have to kiss and make up, like literally kiss, and they're like, no, and they start laughing. So that usually happens
Yeah,
first, and I
that's a
think
good
too.
point. I read something once where some lady was like, whenever my kids fight, I go into the room and I just lay down on the floor. And then they look at me like, what's she doing? So it just kind of like interrupts whatever's
You have
going
to
on.
focus
And you're
onto,
not like, stop touching them. I told you to stop. So you're not like saying anything. Because
yeah,
usually the more words you say, they say, it's like the less effective you're being sometimes. So she
yeah,
just would like lay down. I haven't tried that yet. I don't, it just came to me now. I read that. Um,
yeah.
Luckily that my kids haven't been fighting as much.
Just
It's more like they want us to constantly be with them, and then if we have work to do, it seems like that's when they get upset, like
yeah.
stuff like that. So
Your kids coming in. That's so
yeah.
funny. Um,
So
I was gonna also ask you, and yeah, I know it's like kids might be coming. I feel like I've had my door like, oh wait, she's not done. Um, the one of the things that I've done, and I was trying to look for it in my little recycling little bin of goodies. I print off this weekly checklist for the kids to do. Um, because both of my kids have ADHD and they really need structure, and
yeah,
I'm the queen of structure when I can create structure. Um, or maybe it's like I'm the queen of flexible structure. So one of the things for them, in order to be able to maximize the time that I get to do the things that I need to do, is to give them something to like check off. And so it's this big page. I wish I could find it, like the one from last week. It's probably in my little recycling pile here, but I don't know where it is. But it basically, like, it has all 7 days for the week, and
mhm.
it's like down to like brush your teeth and
Right,
floss and
yeah, like the
eat a fruit or vegetable. Like, they have to check that off, and then I have to double check and be like, did you really do this? And I start asking them questions, and it's more of a checkpoint. But it would be the same thing. What I noticed, maybe because I think I've been doing this for 2 years now. So 2 years prior to that, it was like I had the list in my head, and I'm
yeah,
like, okay, you pick them up from school, you go home, you have to unpack your backpack and like put all your like whatever lunch garbage away and like prep everything for the next day, and then you have to eat dinner, and then you have to do your homework, and you have to go through this certain thing, and oh, if you have a spelling test, you might have to practice spelling that day. Like, there was just too much that was going on, and
yeah,
I couldn't, like, I literally was like stressing myself out, like trying to think about the routines that they needed to do. So having the checklist, it's like, did you really brush your teeth?
yeah,
Or your room isn't clean. All of the very minute details. And I'm just hoping that at the end of all of this, um, like, my kids won't need it, because they'll just be ingrained in their brain, because they're like, oh, I'll go and do this. But even on the weekends, it's like, before you can do anything, you have to brush your teeth, you got to get dressed, you got to eat breakfast, and then we can play around with whatever we're going to do for the weekend. So it's a little crazy. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's teaching them too, like to do that. I mean, it helps even when you're an adult, like you're an adult, and it helps you navigate and it helps them kind of get used to that system. Cause I didn't have that as a kid. I didn't have a checklist system or anything like that. So it
it's
just
so
helps them get used to it. Even for me, I had to call the vet just to make sure when my dog needed his next vaccinations. And I didn't have it on my list, but I knew I had to do it. But I finally did it today. I put it on a list. But until I did that, I didn't actually call the vet. You know, I needed to
yeah.
for like the last 4 days. But yeah, it's like if it's not there, it's even if it's in your head, doesn't mean you're gonna do it. There's
Yeah.
something different about it.
Because it's like, again, it's like, oh, wait, I have to do this and I have to do that. And oh my gosh, there's
Yeah,
50,000 things that are going on. So
yeah,
that's crazy. The one last thing that I wanted to talk about is I know that you guys are kind of in the entrepreneurship space. And then, obviously both of us were, working and being employed by somebody, when we were going into parenthood and all that stuff. And I know that and maybe people who are married and don't have kids or people who are single don't realize this, but like there is a huge shift in priorities when you start having kids. And so, can you tell me a little bit about what how your working conditions have changed since you have had kids? Because I'll say that, like, for me, I was very grateful that working at Northwestern gave me the flexibility to like work on the schedule that I had, but there were still times where I was like 2 or 3 in the morning where that was the only time I could get work done. So I
yeah,
was working in the middle of the night just because that's all I had in order to keep up with the pace of the amount of work that I did. And I mean, I think when we were working in McCormick, like I was in a massive like research project cleanup, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
involved so much attention to detail, and I couldn't delegate it to anyone else. Like I had to problem solve and find out like where is everything going and what is wrong, and writing all these like explanations for why things needed to be the way that they were. And
Yeah,
um but I know that there were days where I was like in my office and I was, running the mechanical engineering department at the time. And I would just close my door, which I don't normally like to do, but I would just be crying at my desk because I'm like, I can't do this right now because
yeah.
you
It
can't
sucks.
be at that same level that you were before you had kids. So how was that like for you?
Well, I was never like a workaholic, but I don't know. I still don't really know what like my path is. Like I never knew what I wanted to do and I
Mhm.
just found a job. And um so I think what happens sometimes, like my husband is the one that had a business at the
Yeah.
time. His work, I don't want to, I guess it's, yeah, it took priority. I mean, I did my job and I did everything I was supposed to do. I did a good job. I had good reviews. Like I did everything I was supposed to do, but it kind of kept me at a level that I didn't go up because I knew what that looked like and I avoided it, to be honest.
Hmm.
Like I was like, I can't do that with him doing what he's doing.
Mm.
So I kind of stayed in a lateral position. You
And
know,
that
that was a choice that I made. And
yeah.
I didn't make as much money as I would have liked because of it. But I had the health insurance. And so that was like my priority at the time.
Yeah.
But I didn't have like a vision of being a director or executive director. Like I just didn't have that. I saw those jobs and it stressed me out. So I'm like, I knew I wouldn't be able to do it with my two kids
Yeah.
and I don't have any family here. I don't have any of that stuff. So, and with my partner working a lot, that was my choice. And so, but it was still hard. You know, I like when I worked, I still had a lot of work to do and I didn't socialize as much, you know, like I would see other people kind of talking here and there, which I, you know, that's good. You should be friends and talk at work. And I did, but I just felt like I mostly was like boom, 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 boom. Like I worked through lunch. I
That
left.
yeah,
I
that
had
was a
I had to
staple.
have my kids. Yeah, I'd have my kids picked up by 5:30. I had to,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to get places. Evanston is a hard traffic town. Like I had to leave at 5 to get to the place they were at by 5:30.
Yeah.
And that was on me. Like my husband didn't do it because
Yeah.
he had a business that was after, it was nights and weekends, you know. So then I knew on the weekends he wasn't really around. As you know, it was just, I kind of just stayed in my positions I was in because it was doable. It was not easy, but for me it was doable. But I maybe missed out on some opportunities because of it.
Yeah.
So
But if you had to go back, would you have made other choices? Because I think about that a lot for myself too, because I was definitely ambitious and driven, and I wanted to be able to
oh
be
yeah,
like, I'm a mom and I can do this, but I want to continue to climb the ladder until
yeah,
until I until I was put in my place and be like, nope, you can't be Superwoman. And it's fine. And just, I would have been like, screw this, I'm gonna figure it out. But yeah, I mean, I think I had a very
awesome. I mean, I think that's awesome too.
yeah, but I mean, it didn't pan out in the end. It was just kind of
Right.
like, holy cow! Like I was definitely sacrificing my time with my kids when they were little, and maybe that's okay because it was work was my escape from
It's hard
parenting,
being
I
home.
guess,
Yeah,
which is like
it's
very sad to say, but it was just kind of like, oh, I can't just be with them all the time. I'm very much like I need the variety and all that. But I was doing a mediocre job as a parent, and so
yeah,
having to make the choice of like, oh, I could start my own business and have a little bit more flexibility and be on my schedule and not have the pressure of like having to perform at a level. So that was kind of how it looked like for me when I
yeah,
chose to step back from parenting. But I did, for a good, what it was like, I think my oldest was 6 when I left NU, or 5. It was 2015. So yeah, he was born in 2009. So he was turning 6 that year, but he was 5 years old, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I don't want parents to look at that as failure. It's just a matter of like, you know, you need to have certain supports in place in order to have a higher powered job or a
yeah, you
demanding
do.
job.
Yeah,
um because if you don't, and I know that you said that like you don't have family around, and I was like, I thankfully did for a while, but it still was like too difficult because I remember I'd drive to Skokie to drop my son off when I was working at NU, and then I'd have to like pump all the milk and like package it all and then like go to work. So it was like a 45-minute to Skokie and then like another 20 minutes to Evanston. And then there were some days where I just was like mommy brain and I forgot the milk, or I left it on the counter, and then I had to drive all the way back. And then by the time I got to work, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, this is the worst. Like, I cannot keep my stuff together.
yeah. It
But
was actually, now rethinking it, maybe that was the hardest part of parenting. Yeah, it was like getting them ready for the day and dropping them off. Everything, like we never had a nanny, so it wasn't like someone came to our house, like you said. Like I would have to take them places. So
yeah.
like getting them ready, and they never wanted to get dressed, or no one ever wanted to do anything, and then like getting out of the house and then getting them there. And then they would cry when you left. And then, yeah, it was just like this, it was a long, long, long process. And before you even got to work, I felt like it had been hours and hours of work. Um,
Yeah. You're already tired. And then
and
you're at work, and if you're nursing, you're like, oh, I gotta take a lunch break so that I can pump milk, which is another fun thing
yeah,
that
yeah,
mothers
it's,
have to deal with.
but I think like with having a business though, it also never really ends. I mean, I guess it depends on your job, your corporate job.
Yeah, that's true.
Mine I was able to turn off. Although I did have grants due sometimes at like 10 o'clock at night, or, depending on when they were due, sometimes I'd have to submit them later.
Yeah,
But I felt like I was able to just, man, I really worked so hard during the hours I was there,
yeah.
and was able to get it done. But if I had a job where I was like at 2, 3 in the morning still working, um, I wouldn't have lasted as long. That's for sure. I would not have
It's
lasted.
not, it's definitely not sustainable.
Yeah,
So, and I know that we have to
not
wrap
like
up
a nanny.
soon, but
Yeah.
I wanted to, end, or close out this conversation with just some, words of wisdom for, any parents who are watching this and thinking like, oh my gosh, like there's just too much, it's too stressful. Hopefully we haven't talked out, any soon to be parents out of having kids, because I think that there are so many wonderful gifts that kids bring, but I think it is very important to have that, like, have an understanding and an expectation about the work that gets put into it. You know, it impacts your marriage, it impacts your career, it impacts everything, but
Yeah, it
you know,
does. It
you
does.
also have to, look at it from a very positive perspective, because yes, maybe there's been a lot of, oh my gosh, like all of this stuff that we've had to juggle, that we've talked about here, but we're still sitting here 100% proud to be the parents that we are to our kids, and you just make it work. And it takes, so I want to kind of wrap up with like some words of wisdom to either parents to be, or parents that are kind of going through what we're going through, anytime between the 0 to 10 year range, because that's what we can speak to right now. But
Mhm.
and maybe I'll start by just saying that, I think that, sometimes it requires you to take a step back and really think about like what's most important, as a baseline, because um, at the end of your life, do you want to be known for your work? Do you want to be known for like the family you raised? Do you want to be known for, the people that you knew, or, what is that thing? And if you can figure out an order of priorities, your top five, and then knowing in which order at certain times, and knowing that they can shift, but just knowing what is important in the end. Like, I think that one of the biggest lessons that I learned as a parent is that, like, you can't do everything. You have to learn how to delegate, you have to learn how to like leverage resources, you have to ask for help, and also just give yourself grace, because no parent can ever be perfect. We can do the best that we can, but we're gonna all screw up our kids in some way, shape, or form. Screw up our kids,
Yes.
but they're also going to learn some amazing things. And so you have to do the best that you can do with all of the information that you have, and just give yourself grace. So
Yeah,
that's
there's a
my
lot
advice.
of
What would
information
you
out
say?
there. Yeah. Yeah, and I would say for me, just there was a period too where I didn't work at all for about a year, and I felt like I had kind of a weird self image at that time. But I kind of worked through like what you do isn't who I really am, and trying to like separate that a little bit,
Yeah.
which can be hard. Just if you're on a path, or you at least feel like you're on some kind of path, and then it diverts, and you feel like who am I, like do I even count here, like I don't know, like I just have worked on that, like not to just get caught up in what you do being how you matter, and
Yeah.
but it's still, if you're ambitious about something, you want to be a brain surgeon or whatever, I mean, that's amazing. We need all these types of people, and they can all be parents. um,
Yeah.
but if you're maybe feel like you're at like a mid-level job, like still need people to do those jobs, and that's fine, and not to like get all hung up on that. And like you have to make your own choices, what makes you happy. So
Yeah. And it doesn't, I mean, I think too, there's that whole feeling of like just getting out of comparison. Don't compare yourself to other
right.
parents. Don't compare yourself to other people that you might work with,
Yeah.
because, you have to make the decisions that are best for your family. And,
Right.
that's part of one of the big choices when you're becoming a parent, is like understanding that like you are not 100% in control of your own life and priorities anymore. I think a lot of
Right.
times the kids will, and at least for, that first 10 years, they're going to you're going to be driving off of their agenda, that you're going to have an agenda, but they're going to veer
Mhm.
you off of that agenda as much as possible, and you're going to have to be able to learn how to be agile and flexible. And those are really good traits to have. Also, I think that, I've never been more flexible in my life, and
Yeah.
able to
And to
roll
keep
with the punches.
trying. Yeah, keep trying other things. Like keep, if something isn't working, you just got to keep working.
Resilience, it teaches you so many things, so it actually really builds you up. I feel like parents are definitely the strongest, and I think that even going back to coronavirus, I feel like parents who were both both employed by outside companies, and now being forced to work from home, and still having the expectations of living up to those jobs, like those are the people who have it probably the hardest right now, in terms of, and with their kids at home. I feel like it's a lot of juggling, and kids under, I think kids under the fourth grade or below, like I think that there's still a lot of hand holding that needs to happen, and it's
Yeah.
not easy to juggle your full-time job that is paying you still, and to keep the lights on and keep stuff moving, when your kids are also at home e-learning, and you just have to make the best choices that you can, and we're all in this together, and all of that,
And
so.
if you're working and you have like a 2-year-old and below, I don't know how that works. To be like, I can't imagine how you would work with a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old or a 3-year-old.
Yeah, and then
I
it's
don't
like
know how that works. That would be hard. That would be really hard.
it would be.
Um,
But
so
if you have a 2-year-old or younger and you're watching this and you're just doing what you can and have
yeah,
any words of wisdom for those people, like, I think it is just really finding help, and then, making that choice in that moment, like, what can you do with work? Like what are you capable of doing? Because, this isn't the conditions that, the expectations that,
right.
you were supposed to. So I think that everybody needs to understand that things move slowly. I definitely have a
Yeah.
client who has
Look,
a someone under two and also another on the way. So it's really touch and go, and you have to just roll with the punches and do what you can do and really break it down. And I was talking about this in the newsletter I sent out today to people who get it, and it was just about, like, when you can only do so much, you have to just, like, start every day thinking, okay, what are the bare essential things that I absolutely have to get done,
yeah.
and figure out different ways of, like, you know, is there a nap that needs to happen, and that's the time that you have to be super intentional with your time.
Yeah, and I would imagine if you have a partner, you'd have to take shifts. I mean, I would think that would be the best to have that like focus, to be able to focus. I would think that would help so much if you could somehow take shifts, if
Yeah.
that's possible. Um,
But anyways, this was an amazing conversation, and I'm sure, like, I gotta go check on my kids and make sure that they ate lunch because it was a little
yeah.
crazy before we started. But for those of you who are watching this live or on the replay, thanks so much for checking in. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments on where this is posted, and we'll be happy to answer and just be a support for all of you parents out there. And just know that we are sending love to you from wherever you're at, amidst all this coronavirus stuff. So make sure you stay safe, and make all the best decisions you can for your family. So, all right, Erin, anything else that you have to say?
Um, no, just well wishes to everyone and especially in the healthcare industry. I'm thinking about them all the time. So,
Yeah.
and for families. So,
And Erin, this is so awesome that we had some time to connect and chat. And now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go rest. This is my focus thing for the day. I know you said you were an introvert, so you're like, okay, I'm gonna go and, like, shut this off and just be
right.
quiet for the rest of the day. I feel like I'm definitely been channeling my inner introvert
Yeah.
during this whole thing, because I feel like people see me as an extrovert, but I also, like, this is like the prime time where I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of people that are going to be looking inward. I want
Hmm.
to do that too. I want to just focus on me. I just want to focus on doing what I can, and that's it. And so we will continue to do that. But it's so awesome to connect with you. And then I'm gonna stop the live stream, so we'll say bye to everyone. Bye.
I
Thanks for watching.